This is Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. We're counting down to Christmas, but first, let's bring you up to speed with what we're tracking in the polity, beginning with the headlines. Edo State Governor Okpebholo sets up a 14-man asset verification committee to probe the immediate past administration of Godwin Obaseki. Dangote Petroleum Refinery announces reduction in its price of premium motor spirit to 970 naira per litre for oil marketers. And suspected herdsmen have killed at least 13 persons in Azagel settlement in Tombo Ward, local government area of Benue State. Thanks again for joining us on the program. We call it the midday gateway into the polity, and we go to the North Central. That's where we want to start from with the recent resurgence of killings in the food basket of the nation, which gets our first attention on the program. A suspected herdsmen have killed at least 13 persons in Azege settlement of Tombo Ward, local government area of Benue State. The attack was said to have occurred on Sunday, leading to death, arson, and the destruction of farmlands and crops. The chairman of local government area, Clement Kev, who confirmed the persistent attack by armed men in the community during a phone interview, said the incident has been reported to the police.
We had an issue today around 1-2 thereafter. The fire herdsman came right away in local government, Tombo Council Ward, killed almost 15%. I reported the matter to police. I even took the matter to advisor on security matter, the governor. And right now I'm in Makodi. So the affected people that are yet to be transferred to teaching hospital. That land does not belong to herdsmen. That is a place where we have been staying for years. I don't know how they came about to claiming the ownership of that land. And I cannot just allow my people to live. We lodge official complaint before the governor of Benue State. The governor of Benue State took the matter to the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So my people are still claiming the ownership of that land.
From there, we'll move on to the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, announcing a reduction in its price of premium motor spirit known as petrol to 970 naira per litre for oil marketers. A statement issued by the group brand and communications officer, Mr. Anthony Chejina, says the decision is the refinery's way of appreciating Nigerians for their unwavering support in making the refinery dream come true. According to the statement, the move is a cut from the refinery's 990 naira export depot price announced earlier this month. Mr. Chejina adds that while the refinery will not compromise on the quality of its petroleum product, it is assuring Nigerians of the best quality products that are environmentally friendly and quite sustainable. And to other stories now, where the Edo State Governor, Senator Okpebholo, has approved the constitution of a 14-man state assets verification committee to probe the administration of former Governor Godwin Obaseki. Governor Okpebholo will inaugurate that committee tomorrow, Tuesday, November the 26th, 2024, at the Government House in Benin City. A statement issued by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Fred Itwa, says that despite repeated calls for a more holistic database of the assets and liabilities of the previous administration, the Godwin Obaseki-led government came up with a very scanty and limited assets and liabilities of the state. The committee, which is chaired by Mr. Ernest Afolabi, with Ansley Jesua as the deputy chairman, also has Prim Kasim Afegua and Will Patrick Ikariale and Mr. Patrick Obayagbo as members. All right, that's the very conversation we will be having on the program. This new development, since he assumed office as governor, there has been several actions, either dissolving the board or stopping one thing or the other, just trying to reorganize the state for himself to make sure that he governs to the best of his ability. I'm talking about Senator Okpebholo, the governor of Edo State. That's why we've been joining the program with this many developments in the state to break it down for us right here. Mr. Fred Itwa is Chief Press Secretary to the Edo State Governor. Mr. Itwa, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Yeah, congratulations, I must say to you. I think you were the first to be appointed by the governor. Perhaps that means
yes,
that you're in his very good book. So he needed somebody to be reeling out all these sanctions that he's putting out. But that's just an aside, by the way. So let's begin with the one that is really causing ripple effect in the polity, and that has to do with the probe of the past governor, Godwin Obaseki. From your statement, you said that the assets and liability of the state as provided by the Obaseki government were quite scanty. So maybe you explain to us what you mean by that before I build on to that other questions.
Okay, if you recall, before the swearing-in, there was a committee set up by the Obaseki administration, a transition committee, where they had hoped that both parties would be open, tell each other the liabilities they will inherit, and also talk about the assets they will be passing on to the new government. But unfortunately, the last government was economical with the truth, wasn't coming forth with what was on ground. And before then, there had been claims about property, facilities, and other investment belonging to the state government. But as soon as the governor came on board, he still could not understand or decipher what was available, what was the liability. Nothing of such was handed over to him. So in order to stand on a good footing and start well without making serious mistakes, he needed to set up a committee that would verify the assets of the states, his stakes in different companies within and outside Nigeria, to also know what to tell those people to say, okay, this is what I inherited and this is what I plan to do. So that was what gave birth to that committee that will be inaugurated tomorrow. That's Tuesday by the governor at the government house. So during the inauguration, the terms of reference for the committee will be spelled out by the administration of what they plan to do. And from the name as well, you can tell that they need to verify what is on ground as against what was being peddled by the last Obaseki administration. So basically, that's what the committee plans to do.
So without prejudice to whatever is being, whatever is going to be the reference of this committee by the governor, what are the preliminary findings so far? Because I know some numbers were bandied around in the media. We understand about 200 vehicles, but you've only found 5 or so. So in terms of monies, in terms of property and all of that, preliminary, what have you found as a government?
So far, the committee set up to recover vehicles. So this morning, from the findings that I made, they had recovered about 10 vehicles. And this conversation I had with the chairman of that committee, he said that the initial figure of 200 was understated, that there are almost 500 vehicles that are still missing. And as of yesterday, they had traced about 21 of those vehicles to the house of a very top appointee of the last government. Another one, about 15, traced to the house of another. And in the coming days, they intend to legitimately recover these vehicles and other assets belonging to the states, so that people who are in government will have something to use to work on behalf of the people. As I speak, a key number of persons or key appointees of the new government do not have even basic vehicle to move around because nothing was inherited as when the governor took over about a fortnight ago. So it's quite a bad situation. We are hoping the committee would do more, recover the vehicles and other property belonging to the state that are being held in private hands, which ordinarily shouldn't have happened.
So from the books you have looked at, we've talked about cars. We're going to go to other issues. We've talked about the cars. You've said now it's not 200 alone, it's about 500. We may probe that even further. Let's talk about the finances, which is the key to executing any form of project. We know for a fact, at least that is in open space, that the government is in debt to the tune of almost 500 billion naira because Edo State is about one of the highest in terms of external debts, besides the domestic debt that you have. So, but what did the government inherit in terms of the monies that they saw on ground, in terms of liquidity?
As of today, he's still looking at the books. If I tell you he inherited 5 billion or 10 billion, I may be economical with the truth. But what I know is that when he came on board, what he saw or what he met on ground was very different from the picture that was painted in the media, that some form of Eldorado had been built in government. He's still looking at the books. He's still talking to permanent secretaries, other heads of government that served in the last administration to fully understand or have a grasp of what is on ground in terms of finances before certain pronouncement can be made. So as of now, I cannot, in clear terms, tell you what was inherited or what he met on ground in terms of finances. In the coming days, probably we'll have another conversation that will be more open and give you more straightforward answers without dancing around the bush as to the current finances of the state or where we stand in terms of the monies inherited and otherwise.
The reason I'm going to dwell on that question for a bit. Besides what you're trying to discover, and I'm sure perhaps there was a handover note, or even if you say it's scanty,
There was no handover note as far as we know. If you recall, the last governor was not even in town as at the day of the swearing in, although he claimed in the media that he was never invited. And the question he did not ask the last governor was, did he invite the current governor to the state house, that's the government house, at any time to like, okay, take a tour, let's have a meeting, have a conversation as to what you inherit on ground. Nothing of such was done. So if you did not hand over even a note to guide you through your first week in office, how can you fully have a grasp of what is on ground? So it's like starting afresh to understand the system here before making certain pronouncements or meetings. So the governor is still doing that, like I said. He's having meetings. He's...
Oh dear. That's why we appear to be having network connection issues. But if you can hear me, where I was going was the committees, the transition committee met, and certain documents were passed on. I'm sure that part of what was passed on is the finances. Before the governor would say, as against the claims of the Obaseki administration, this is what is really available. So what are the claims in terms of assets, in terms of finances? What are the claims of the Obaseki administration that, okay, this is what I'm leaving to the Okpebholo administration, before you can now go and find out whether indeed that is available or not? That's where I'm going to with that question.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Etwa, did you get my question?
Yes, you did.
Did you get my question, Mr. Etwa, if you're still there? Oh, dear. All right. So the Chief Press Secretary to the Edo State Governor, Mr. Fred Itwa, is my guest, trying to look at some of the development as far as Edo governance is concerned. The governor just took over office barely 2 weeks ago. It was about 12th of November when he was sworn in as governor, and he's been taking some action, one of which he's setting up a committee, 14-man committee. They call it the State Asset Verification Committee, to probe the assets and liabilities of the previous administration and come up with a report and possible action against or the former administration. So trying to find out a few details as to what they found out. Mr. Itwa, are you back now? Okay. Well, let's just take this one, and we hope that Mr. Itwa will join us, because I have lots of questions for him beyond all of this probe to other things that has to do with governance, because whatever Obaseki could not do now is Okpebholo's problem, and we're going to face that problem by probing further on how he will intend to resolve some of those issues. But let's tell you that the submission of the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Mr. Festus Keyamo, last night is anything to go by. Then we should be looking forward to better coordination of agencies and even possibly significantly downscale some of the harassment we see at our airports. The facilities which are gateways to our country will now witness some of those officials wearing body cams. He made some of these assertions on our program Politics Today last night, where he said the NSA has been reached out to for some of the complaints that people have been relaying to his office concerning the harassment at the airport. Let's take a listen to him.
We have complained to the National Security Advisor on this because we are concerned about the harassment of Nigerians. Take note, it is not aviation. So people should not say, Keyamo, I see people tag me all the time, Keyamo, what you are doing. Somebody just asked for bribe for me, but it's somebody else on that agency. They tag me all the time. It's not me. It's not aviation. We have to complain to the National Security Advisor, who is doing a lot on this. I mentioned before, the training is almost over now, that he has bought 1,000 body cameras that all the agencies will wear. We just want to go through the training first. And there's a command center for this, where everybody will see exactly the moving cameras on everybody's chest in a command center. So we're almost through that. When that is done, it is the manner of operation we should be concerned about. I'll just tell you that the NDA just arrested a few days ago, and he has written to me, the chairman, on one airline, I won't mention the airline, a large dose of drugs that somebody brought in from that airline into Nigeria. These agencies can be at the airport, should be at the airports, but they should be out of view. They should have their cubicles, be inside. It is when you now suspect somebody, you pull him out and take him to a restricted zone and check the person. Customs are not skilled enough to detect drugs. Immigration, they are not skilled enough to detect drugs. EFCC, they are not skilled enough to detect drugs. NDL is not skilled enough to detect people who are laundering money, okay? And on like that. They all have their areas of specialty, but it is the manner of operation we must question. And then the so-called multiple stops that they harass Nigerians, that we must reorganize in such a way that we must balance both the convenience of passengers and the need for security at our border. It's a delicate balance that we must achieve.
Let's head outside our shores, where the UN climate talks have drawn to a close in Baku, Azerbaijan, following 2 weeks of intensive negotiations, whose primary focus was establishing a new finance goal. The final outcome shows richer countries now promising to raise their funding to help poorer countries fight climate change to a record $300 billion a year, which represents just about 30% of the resources demanded by developing nations. The deal has a larger overall target of $1.3 trillion per year, but most will come from private sources. Our environment correspondent Ayola Kasim reports.
To Agenda 14. Conclusion of the session.
After an exhausting 2 weeks of negotiations, fraught with geopolitical divide, and 2 days after the conference was scheduled to end, witnessing 3 closing plenaries, COP29 President finally got an agreement in the early hours of Sunday, the 24th of November.
I hereby invite the CMA to adopt the draft decision contained in document CMA/2024 L.22.
After the applause came the harsh criticism of the process. India questioned the presidency's intentions.
Excellency, trust is the basis for all action, and this incident is indicative of a lack of trust, a lack of collaboration on an issue which is a global challenge, which is faced by all of us, and most of all by the developing countries that are not responsible for it. But we've seen what you have done. However, would want to say that gaveling and trying to ignore parties from speaking does not behove the UNFCCC system, and we would want you to hear us and also hear our objections to this adoption. We absolutely object to this unfair means followed for adoption.
The most anticipated new collective quantified goal only offers $300 billion per year by 2035 to tackle the climate crisis. It's nowhere near the $1.3 trillion that is needed, and it is not debt-free. Many say it is way too little, way too late. The African Group chair says it is acrimoniously done. For Nigeria, it is simply an insult to the UN Climate Convention.
And I'm saying that we do not accept this. You expect us to have ambitious NDCs. The NCQG was supposed to enable us to have realistic finance goals. $300 billion is unrealistic.
But the COP29 president believes the Baku finance goal represents the best possible deal that could be reached. The representative of the EU and its member states pointed out to the delegates that this is a challenging geopolitical period, and sealing a deal truly is exceptional.
We're tripling the 100 billion goal, and we feel it is ambitious, it is needed, it is realistic, and it is achievable. And we are confident that this will be a tale of delivery.
While the deal has drawn condemnation around the world, the UN Secretary General said he had hoped for a more ambitious outcome. But this agreement provides a base on which to build. The Executive Secretary of the Climate Convention says it is an insurance policy for humanity.
But like any insurance policy, it only works if premiums are paid in full and on time. Promises must be kept to protect billions of lives.
Following what happened here, it is now clear that a lot more needs to be done in Brazil next year to restore hope in the COP process. From Olympic Stadium in Baku, Azerbaijan, the venue of COP29, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
All right, that's our correspondent Ayola Kasim from Azerbaijan, bringing us up to speed as to COP29. The outcome, we hope that the big guys will abide by what they promised. But let's get back to the conversation with Mr. Freddie Tua, the CPS, Chief Press Secretary to the Governor of Edo State, Mr. Monday Okpebholo. Mr. Tua, thank you so much for staying with us. Network played a fast one on us, but let's see how much we can squeeze in as soon as possible. I want to talk about three things in quick succession. First, let's talk about the issue of cultism and Benin City and Edo State, as well as internet fraud. We've always said that Benin City is notorious for cultism, and which is not a good reputation. We've seen what has played out over and over. A few weeks ago, we saw what happened in Upper, and now that problem is going to be faced by Mr. Okpebholo. What is the drastic action the government is taking to stem this in the tide? Because if you're attracting investors, the environment has to be safe. Benin City is notorious for cultism, which is not a Did you get my question? Oh dear. Oh dear.
Edo is notorious for cultism. That's not true. Maybe in the past, yes, but a new government is in town, a new sheriff is in town. So to say that we are notorious for that, I got your question. I'm trying to correct that impression that Edo is notorious for cultism. I said that's not true. Crime is not exclusive to Edo. So I'd like to correct that perception. Now to the question you asked, if you've noticed or if you have followed development in the last few days, we've not had any case of court-related clashes since last Wednesday. The governor inherited that problem, but as soon as he stepped in, he had a series of meetings with security agencies, with other state actors to address the issue. Commitments were made, and as I speak, that issue has been resolved permanently. And of course, there will be some follow-up behind the scene, which the governor is coordinating. And I can assure you that cultism or court-related clashes that were heated through like a norm, which you alluded to, are no longer the same. The city is calm, and there are no more reported cases almost in the last 1 week. So that issue has been addressed significantly by the governor.
All right, unfortunately, we really have no more time. I'm happy with your optimism. Governor Obaseki struggled with it for 8 years. You're just here 2 weeks, and you say it's not reputed. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just going to say amen to whatever you say, and you guys should keep at it to make sure that people of Edo State are actually safe. But I must thank you, Mr. Fred Itwa, the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor of Edo State, Mr. Senator Monday Okpebholo. Thank you for coming. It's an ongoing conversation. I have a lot I wanted to discuss with you, but time and network wouldn't let us do that. Thank you. And now to Kebbi State, where an attempted cattle rustling operation by the Lakura bandit group in Gamuza village and Guado village has been foiled by security operatives. The intervention followed credible intelligence received about the activities of the bandits. According to a statement by the Kebbi State Director of Security, Abdulrahman Zaga, the Nigerian Armed Forces and ground troops were mobilized to track and disperse the criminal group. The statement adds that the governor has strengthened collaboration between the security agencies and local stakeholders, including traditional rulers, through regular security meetings to improve intelligence sharing and coordination. And let's get back to Benue for a bit, where the Nigerian Bar Association in Otukpo and the lawmaker representing Otukpo Ankpa at the Benue State House of Assembly, Kennedy Angbo, are appealing to the police to ensure the arrest of those responsible for the murder of a lawyer, Mr. Mark Ofiku, on Friday, November the 22nd. The chairman of Otukpo branch of the NBA, Mr. Ojo Emmanuel, and the lawmaker made the call during a protest march to the Commissioner of Police in the state. Gunmen yet to be identified on Friday afternoon at Otukpo Street in Otukpo local government area, Benue State, opened fire on the barrister, but the Commissioner of Police says the command is already investigating the murder.
Members of the Nigerian Bar Association Otukpo branch, accompanied by the lawmaker representing Otukpo Akwa State constituency, Mr. Kennedy Angbo, stormed the Benue State Police Command to protest the killing of an Otukpo-based human rights lawyer, Mr. Mark Ofiku. Reacting to their demand for justice, the police commissioner promises thorough investigation into the case.
The police at Otukpo, the area commander and the DPO have already commenced the investigation to unravel the mystery behind the gruesome murder of that member of the Nigerian Bar Association. They have already visited the scene, and by the special grace of God, I have assured them that it's not a matter that can be swept under the carpet. Detailed investigation will be conducted, and we are believing God on our side to unravel the perpetrators of this heinous crime and bring them to justice.
They expressed their displeasure over continuous gang-related killings in Otukpo.
I want to see that justice is done, that the perpetrators of this young man, vibrant young man, community leader, and the former secretary of, in fact, he was the secretary of NBA, that his murderers should not have, they should not have peace until they are brought to justice.
We have met with the Commissioner of Police, and he has assured us that no stone will be left unturned, that every mountain will be moved to ensure that those behind this act will be brought to justice.
Gang-related killings in Otukpo local government area of Benue State appears to be recurring with multiple violent attacks, but the State Police Command remains determined to stem the tide.
All right, that's it on the program. But before we go, the NBS has said that the GDP of Nigeria has grown by 3.46% in real terms compared to that of Q3 of 2023, which was about 2.54%. That's the latest from the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics. Thanks so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.